Hello and welcome back to this week's episode of the Blame Game. It's about this week's MSI Finals. T1 and RNG had a back and forth series going to a full 5 games that was 100% decided by side selection. No, but seriously, that's what we're going to be talking about this week. Side selection, T1's drafts, and a little bit of the tournament as a whole for including RNG. These are all things I saw comments, not just on Reddit, but across Twitter. I was too lazy to collect them at the time, and I'm now too lazy to go back and find all of them, but I think most people watching this video have probably seen some of this conversation going on, and I'd like to chime in. Now, normally I think I'm one of the more anti-draft talk people within the community, where I'd much rather look at play before looking at draft, but one step above draft in terms of things I don't really care to talk about too much is side selection. Yes, it does matter. Yes, there's things about this tournament, such as Lucian being permaban, that can make it a little bit frustrating to play on red side. Those are absolutely things that are fair to bring up, but the amount of conversation that's gone on about it, especially coming from T1's coach themselves, is a bit frustrating for me to listen to. We'll start at play, then move up to drafts, and then end at side select and address all this together. First up, T1's play was not phenomenal over the course of this series. It wasn't like they were just getting hard screwed in draft because of things that happened on side select. Even if you think their game 5 draft was fine, even if you think, oh, well, they would have lost it anyways because of side select. What the hell is this level 1?
You just start acceleration gate, because then when Finn goes forward,
you can't get on. Carrier cannot jump back onto Gumayushi. The chase is on. The ignite is ticking.
Absolutely. They're going in. They get 2 first.
Gumayushi, nowhere for him to go. Does still have the flash. Will try and use it away from this battle dance. Gala, though, gets the reset for the jump forward. And it's all RNG in the bottom side.
Okay, fair enough. Carrier gets outplayed, but then Gumayushi stepping back forward and dying as well. I mean, T1 was making mistakes across the board in game 5. It felt like they collapsed. Just to chalk that up to side select differences is a little sus. People have already talked at length about the Jhin, Yuumi, Jace problem that you see here, but if you want my honest opinion, this isn't even the worst draft of the series. Fans always talk about the game 5 draft when a team loses, even if there's much worse drafts within the series, and I would submit their first draft as an example of the worst draft of this entire series, and maybe the entire knockout stage by any team. It's so bad it even got me tweeting about it after the game. Jace, Azir, Caitlyn, and Morgana paired with a Nocturne. This is 3 pushing lanes that just want to play with tempo the whole time and have terrible team fight in what appears to be a team fight meta. On top of the fact that even if you want to play as tempo-oriented game plan, Nocturne's a terrible pick. There's no setup in any lane unless your lanes are just stomping already and can chunk them out underneath their turret. Otherwise, there's no real opportunity to force a dive with the Nocturne. Then, in team fights, Nocturne just goes in alone. He can't kite back while the rest of the team wants to kite out the engage from the enemy team. It's the most dissynergistic team comp. I don't know if that's a word. It's making me invent new words with how bad of a team comp this is. The only way it wins is if you just stomp the hell out of your opponents in lane, which, to be fair to T1, is something that they have done consistently this year. People talk about scrim picks. Well, there's also just sometimes things that you pick up in stage games because you're so good. I think T1 has become accustomed to being able to take tempo-oriented, lane-oriented champions, stomp the game, move into mid to late game, and have such a gold lead that it doesn't matter. And we've seen them do that a little bit with their Barons, but I think also just with their drafts. And when you go up against RNG, a team with a very strong early game themselves, even if that's not what they're known for, they can at least survive T1's power points and get to the mid to late game. And that's exactly what they did when T1 went for these extremely early game-oriented compositions. So to sit there and blame side select when you have some pretty terrible in-game play and some pretty terrible drafts, to me is a big eye roll. But it doesn't stop there. T1 was the 2nd seed heading into this match against the 1st seed. Historically, a lot of the times, I think last MSI was coin flip decided, but a lot of the times the higher seed in bracket play just gets side select. So for T1 to be complaining about side select in this tournament is just such a head scratcher to me. It's like, you got an extra opportunity to maybe get red side. Sure, you lost the coin toss, but most of the time you wouldn't have done it. Why don't you just win more games in group stage? Like, that's usually the answer, is like, well, the other team outperformed you. That's why you got less blue side games. Here, it's a coin toss, but like, you're lucky you got that, and you're still complaining about side select. Everyone knows, generally speaking, League of Legends is a blue side favored game. There are different metas where that changes, and there's plenty of times where the finals have actually had more red side wins than blue side wins, as recently as just last year at World Finals. That's not to say that this isn't a valid thing to be talking about. I just think it's funny for a coach to be saying this stuff right after the loss with all the other issues that went on. That said, while I will blame it as being unbelievably salty, I won't say I don't want him to say this kind of stuff, because to me, it just gives more things to talk about. I'm excited now to have a topic to rail against in this video. I'm excited when T1 goes up against RNG again. I'm sure the RNG coach, or Ming, was the one who said that, first they said it was going to be a 3-0, then they said 3-1 after the coin toss, then it's after they lose, oh, it's all the blue side problem. I can tell the RNG players sound a little salty about this, so it just adds stakes in the future. So while I do kind of roll my eyes at it, I don't hate it. This brings me to some of the final criticism that I want to talk about with this tournament. It came back up after RNG won that there's been some complaints about RNG even being allowed to attend this tournament, given that they had to play from Shanghai. They did the whole artificial ping thing, and there's a lot of stuff to complain about MSI about. And I talked about that in one of my previous videos about the format. We've talked about the ping issue, how Riot got it wrong, a lot of these things. But the idea that somehow not including RNG would have made this a better tournament is something I will never agree with. You can call it not competitively fair, but I say thank fucking God, because at least we got one real series. Can you imagine this tournament without RNG? T1 just being a level or two above literally everyone else the entire tournament. You just know they're gonna win the whole thing, and then it's just multiple 3-0 stomps by them on the way to a title. Like, that is not fun. I am glad that Riot made the decision that they did to allow RNG to play, so at least we got one really good best of 5 series. You can talk about the competitive integrity angle till you're blue in the face. I'm still gonna say I don't give a fuck, because at least it allowed the two best regions to compete against each other in a pretty fair environment. RNG had to play from home, where they've been stuck for weeks on end and probably losing their minds. T1 had to play on stage, but they're also technically at home, and the fans are for them, so who knows exactly how that features out. Like, it's not 100% fair. You don't need to convince me of that. I'm just saying this is better than making G2 play on that stage because they beat like us or something to make finals. Like, the whole tournament would have been a total joke without RNG there. Anyways, that's gonna do it for this episode of The Blame Game. Thank you all so much for watching. We'll be back to your regularly scheduled NA content. Travis has been bemoaning the fact that NA fans, which we predominantly address with this channel, don't give a shit about MSI. Prove them wrong. Watch this video, like, comment, subscribe. Travis is a big dum-dum. There's no better way to show it than subscribing to his YouTube channel and liking this video. Yeah.
Hello everyone, it is me, Travis. I'm staying up late again for MSI this year. Wow, I'm excited for when I get to finally travel to international events, starting with Worlds this year. But the cool thing is that I would probably not have the will to do this if it wasn't for Alienware supporting me, because it's late. It's very late here in California, and I'm tired. But it doesn't matter, because I want to get you this great coverage, and Alienware wants to support me getting you that great coverage. So thank you to Alienware for making this all possible, and I will stay awake with their support.